Ed, can you talk a little bit about directing arcades and love songs?
Yeah, it's a project that has been around my life for a long time because I produced King of Kong,
Right.
which came out back in 2007. And it was a story about a bunch of people, but one of them was Walter Day, who now we can call him, he is the father of esports. He's the first person who ever really thought of gaming as competitive and that these were athletes. But back in the day, back in the arcade area, he had his heart broken and he started hearing these love songs in his head. And so in 2022, almost 20 years after we filmed King of Kong, I started filming again with Walter because he finally was going to make his music. So it's funny, King of Kong was about sort of an arcade battle for a world record. This one's about an older man in his 70s finally chasing his dream of being a singer and songwriter.
Was it a lot of pressure because King of Kong won an Oscar? So, like, how do you follow that up?
Yeah, so the pressure of following up King of Kong was immense, but it was helped by the choice of I was not out to make King of Kong 2. That was never the goal. It's not what this story's about. So that took some of that pressure off. We weren't trying to recreate something we'd already made. But what was nice was we also are able, I think, in this film to honor what King of Kong was, honor some of the way we used editing and music in this film, but tell a completely different story. And in some ways, a much broader story, which will be nice because people may find this and then go back to King of Kong, or the other way around, be King of Kong fans. And we've already heard from some King of Kong fans how surprised they are and relieved that we're not trying to recreate the King of Kong. That's actually been one of the fears. So that was totally with intent, that we didn't want to try to we just didn't want to we wanted to make a totally different type of movie. And I think we did.
Most definitely. And it seems like it's coming at a very timely time. It's about video games and love songs, but we've seen like the strikes in SAG-AFTRA where they're striking because of video games, and then also like in the music industry, there's a lot of arguments with AI. Do you have any input or thoughts about that?
Well, here's the beautiful part about this film and what we do with documentary film in particular is you'll never replace the human element completely on either side of the camera. To tell these stories takes a human touch. Doesn't mean, we had AI tools for some of our transcription stuff to video. Like, there's things that it starts to infuse in what you're doing on your back end. It has to help you be more efficient with your work. But ultimately, the human touch is what this movie's about. It's about a guy playing his guitar. He was all beat up. He just showed up and started playing his music, started hearing these songs and represent himself. And so that part of it, and then the other piece I'll say too with this movie, Arcades and Love Songs, we always thought this is going to play in a theater with people watching it. And I think as a filmmaker, it's important to sort of plant that pole or that flag of, I want this to play in theaters. Even if I have to go rent a theater and play it and invite some friends, I think playing a movie in a theater sets you, it sets a higher bar, I think, as a storyteller to say, I'm gonna have to sit in a dark room with a bunch of strangers and watch this movie. And so that's what I'm very proud of. This is a very communal, the theater experience has nothing to do with the AI, and this movie is made for a communal experience.
Definitely. What do you want people to take from the message of Arcades and Love Songs the most?
It's never too late keeps coming up. Walter's in his 70s, and he finally realized his dream of making the music that he's wanted to make. He performed it. We've got it in the movie. But it's never too late. We all have these dreams, and I think we're all starting to learn too. All of us are multiple things. If we're a teacher, we're also a parent and a baseball coach for our kids, or an artist who has a thing out in the garage I go to, or whatever that is. And I think a lot of us starting to realize you sort of need to think of it as, is it a side hustle? Can I make some money on it? And I think Walter, we're working with a record label. We hope to have his music out soon. Maybe this does become a revenue source for an older man, because his music, Walter Day's music, is beautiful, and it's very hopeful, and it's very sweet.
Definitely. I think the film is very, very sweet. Do you have any dreams, you're a very accomplished director, obviously, but something that you haven't pursued yet?
Professionally, no. I'm doing the things I want to do. I only work on stuff I want to work on and I'm passionate about. I have two pre-teenage sons, so I think growth as a father is a big part of the next 5 or 10 years of my life. Is how do I help them manage a really hard time for kids these days? So that's a big piece of who I am. I wasn't a dad when I made King of Kong, and I think being a father allowed me to make this film. I don't know that I could have made this film in this way had I not become a father in the time from King of Kong till now.
How so?
It humanized me more, made me more compassionate, made me more empathetic, made me respect maybe what Billy was up against sometimes that maybe we didn't notice. You know, he was a father and had a lot of expectations about gaming. So maybe seeing his perspective a little differently, but also just seeing that, you know, Walter has been like a father figure to so many people in video gaming, and then for us, it was like, how do we sort of flip that? I think being a father allowed me to see like how I could support Walter and help him in some ways have his dream come true.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah.